Happy Monday to you. This is John McEntyre Show. I'm John McEntyre. This is John McEntyre Show live. I'm John McEntyre. Today is July the 7th, 2025. I finally got it right. Today is July the 7th, 2025. And we actually have a good show. I have a good show for you today. It was a great question that came in about whether or not you should take dividends. Whenever a stock or fund declares dividends, then they have, legally by law, they have to pay those dividends. And most companies, if they do pay dividends, they pay it usually quarterly, mostly quarterly, some annually, some semi-annually, but most of the time it's quarterly. And so we actually have a good show for you as far as answering that question. But before I get started, I want to see that I wanted to make sure, let you know, first of all, if you're watching by Facebook or if you're watching by YouTube, don't forget to share it, like it, let everyone know about it, hit that thumbs up, and also hit that bell so you can be notified when I'm going live and when I'm also going to be doing other shows, because I do more than live. I also do other videos that I release, and I'm planning to do a lot more of those videos. And so if you're a subscriber, then you will know. Also, share your questions. I will take questions. This is live. If you want to be on the show live with me, just give us a contact information is on the screen there. Give us a contact. We'll discuss the question further, and then we will decide if you want to be on the show live, as in your face, camera. And those are the only ones I'm going to have on live. You have to show your face. We want to see that beautiful face out there, to let them know that it is a human. That it's not some AI bot out there that's answering questions or has been programmed to do stuff like that. Because in today's time, it happens. It happens. AI, these changes, these technological advances, more has happened in seem like the past 2 years than in the last 10 to me. And everyone that I've talked to, they've said the same thing. So if you want to be on the show answering a question, we can arrange that. Or if you have a wallet win, don't forget those wallet wins. Those wallet wins are those small steps that you're taking to make those big changes in your financial life, because that's what we're here for. We're here for, increasing your financial health and wellness. So put a hashtag wallet win in the comments, whichever way you're watching, Facebook or YouTube. Put it in the comments. I see it. I will definitely celebrate it, because we love celebrating those wallet wins here. From anything from starting that first high yield savings account, opening your child's college fund, buying or increasing your insurance, whatever. We want to celebrate it. We want you to share it here. Because a lot of people, they think that what they're doing when they do those small things, that they're not that important. And I'm here to let you know that they are. And if you do those, just say if you did one a week, at the end of the year, you've taken 52 steps to increasing your financial health and wellness. That's a lot. So that's why it should be celebrated. All right. So don't forget the wallet wins. Share the wallet wins. Go to the social media handles and share them in the chat. And if I see it, I will definitely share. All right. Let's get into this here. Question is, it was asked, someone asked the question, should I reinvest my dividends? It was much bigger as part of a discussion, and I thought that would be a very good topic for the show to answer that question on the show. And so, like I said earlier, when a stock or a fund that you own pays dividends, you get to choose how you receive it. You can pocket the cash and use it as another form of income. Or if you're younger, everyone knows me, I always say, once $1 is invested, let it stay there and work. Unless there's certain circumstances that would cause you to have to take the dividend, for instance, and if it's the dividend is declared, then you would take the cash, and those are few, and I'm going to cover those. But like I said, every dollar should be reinvested um, for a number of reasons. But before we get into all of that, leaving it in, it pays off in the long run. If you're 25, 30 years old, for instance, and you've started investing, you've opened your IRA account, or you're at work and you have, an investment account, letting all of that money, it reinvests and just let it work. Just think of all the compounding that will happen, all of the big benefits. Will it be perfect? No. That's why it's called long-term investing. This part is for long-term. This is for your retirement years. So this is long-term. You put it in there. It's not like you forget that it's in there, but you just don't touch it. You allow it to work. And as I go down the list here, you will understand why you don't just park and pray. I don't believe in park and pray. I believe in, you being actively invested, actively managing your money, at least being in the decision-making process. Sure, you will have advisors, other people, the pros, to help you. We, help people with their money, but they have to be involved. They have to be involved because it's, at the end of the day, it is your money. And it is your final decision of what you're going to do with the money. And so, but if you do leave it in and you allow that, you allow the compound interest, one of the 8 wonders of the world, as Einstein put it, compound interest is one of the 8 wonders of the world. A lot of wealth can be built. And so company decides if the company declares dividends and they're going to pay you, you get to decide whether or not you're going to do it. It doesn't happen by default. You have to, now you can just go on the computer, go into your account, check, I want my dividends reinvested. It's called the DRIP program, dividend reinvestment program, DRIP. It's called DRIP. Everything has an acronym today. And so the investment industry has a ton of them. And that's one of them. There's always an acronym for anything that goes on in the financial services industry. All right. So let's get back to it. The basics of a dividends, if the company earns a profit and has excess earnings, it has 3 options. It can reinvest the cash into its operations, which is always good. I believe in reinvesting in business, make the business better. They can pay down debt obligations. Good. A good debt-free company is a strong company. And companies, public companies, operate on a different debt system. Or they can pay the dividends to the shareholders, which is the people that own the stocks, which is us, you and I. We're shareholders. We're called shareholders. They're going to reward us for our continuous support, because as a shareholder, you are considered an owner. Shareholder means owner. You are part owner. Now, you cannot go into the board meeting, go inside the board, tell the CEO what to do, but you do own a small share. However many shares, you own shares of the company, which means you own the company. And like I said, dividends are paid quarterly. And the board, they look at the income statement and they make the final decision on how much per share you will receive. All right. So those dividends, those dividends, they may not always be cash. Sometimes they can take the form of a dividend check, or they can also be paid as additional shares of stock, which in the younger years, that's the best way in mostly every circumstance. Now, like I said, I will cover that. And that's known as dividend reinvestment. Basically getting into the DRIP. That's the DRIP part that I mentioned earlier. If you reinvest, when you reinvest the dividends, what you're doing, you're buying additional shares of the company. And it's actually beneficial to go that way, because dividend reinvestment is a better strategy than taking the cash and then deciding, no, I want to buy more shares where you've taken the cash and you're going to pay taxes, things like that. But some of the other than taxes, the the biggest benefits is when you do reinvestment, the drip. When you decide to drip, um, you don't owe any commissions or brokerage fees because you didn't use a broker. They said, we were going to pay a dividend. You said to reinvest it, the company. So the company is just going to reinvest it and give you more shares. So you're buying your shares at a cheaper price now. So you're actually buying more. Um, when you set it up, like I said, it's automatic. You don't owe any fees. It's flexible. Um, there's a process that you can only do with dividend reinvestment that is called fractional shares, which means you're actually buying more than you would have if just starting out. Like you may be buying just one when you just started out to buy stock or add add the stock to your fund. But now that it's being reinvested, you may be buying three, and they're breaking it up into fractionals. It's called fractional shares. So, but when you're just going to the market, you can't say I want to buy fractional shares. You can't do it. Brokers won't allow it. You have to buy the entire share. But when it's reinvested, you can buy fractionals. So you can buy, 2.25, 2.5, something like that. But it's going to be at a discount, so your dollar is actually going further. And this is like a form of what I like dollar cost averaging, which is you just steadily, consistently invest money automatically into a fund, into your investment account. And this is another way of doing dollar cost investing. Let me see. So I wanted to make sure the benefits is, you don't owe any commissions or other brokerage fees. When you set it up, the dividend reinvestment is automatic. You can set it up to be that way. That's called the drip. And also consistent. Other benefit is being consistent. You can buy shares on a regular basis. This goes into the dollar cost averaging. And this really supercharges, like I said earlier, your long-term returns because of the power of compounding. Now, if a company does offer it, it's just simple. It's just a check of the box that you want your dividends to be reinstated. They will let you know that how much you're going to receive for reinvesting, and how many shares you're going to receive, whether it's fractional or entire shares, commission-free transactions. So you're not going to be charged. You're actually being rewarded for sticking with the company, leaving your money in there. So those are the benefits. Now, I mentioned earlier, sometimes people may decide to take the cash, or they may decide to, take the dividend, or they may decide to leave it in. First one I want to cover is, when to take the actual cash. If you're near retirement, you're in retirement or near, this is basically why you are investing anyway. This was to create another income source for your retirement. And so, yes, it may be time to start taking it. Now, look at all of I always tell people, we advise people to always look at your other sources of income, because you may not need that and you may just allow it to keep working. So, once you go into retirement, you have things like Social Security, you may have a pension, you have things like that, or, annuities, other retirement accounts at work, that's giving you steady income in your retirement years, your non-working years. And so that's the time to decide if you're going to start taking dividends or not. And so you look at everything that's definitely a time to sit down with your financial professional and discuss that. We've discussed that hundreds of times with people. That's one of the reasons why you want to take cash. Another reason, take the dividend. Another reason is sometimes we all know in the stock market, the market underperforms. Well, a particular stock underperforms. It's not the market underperforming, it's the actual stock underperforming. So if that is the case, the all stocks and funds, they do experience price swings, so that it can be difficult to know when to switch gears. But still, if the stock seems, or the fund seems like it has stalled out, and maybe it's a company that's not doing so well, technology changes, something, there's better competitors in the market, so these companies, and some huge companies, actually do that. We've seen plenty of large companies do that. Tech company, like Intel, for instance, was the leader of everything, and now they're like facing the stiff competition. So everything's not doing as well. They're not like gone bankrupt or anything. Far from that. They're just not as strong as they used to be. And so if you had quite a bit of that stock, it may be time, just for instance, and they gave a dividend, then it may be a good idea to just take the dividend, and start to reduce your holdings of that particular stock in your fund. So if it's not doing well, then it may be time, and take your winnings and move on, and find other companies to put into your fund, to put into your portfolio. um, and that means you can, uh, like I said, look at other companies. Another reason you may want to also take the dividend is because it may be doing so well, and you're buying dividends to the point to where your portfolio is getting out of balance, and you're not as diversified as you should be, because this particular company may be like very heavy in your portfolio. Even though it's doing well, it's good. As long as it's doing well, that's a good thing. But let's say for instance, and this is just hypothetical, just for math purposes, let's say that a particular company stock you owned in your fund, it made up 50% of your portfolio. If it's doing well, all is well, all is good. If it's going up, all is good. But if it's not performing so well, that means 50% of your portfolio is taking a hit, and that can be substantial. So that's why sometimes it can actually cause your diversification to get off, and you've seen some funds, it can actually cause a sort of like a conservative style fund to actually become more like a growth style fund. And depending on the season of your life, it may not be a good idea for you to be in that type of a fund. Well, if one stock is doing very well and it's making the portfolio, knocking the balance of the portfolio off, you may be thinking, well, I'm in a conservative type fund, but it's over here, doing like a growth. And then when things like maybe slide or go, starts to go bad, we're going to a bear market or something like that, that particular stock that makes up 50% of your portfolio, it starts to go down. And you were thinking you were in a conservative, but now you're in a totally different fund, and you're taking losses. And so then you have to make the decision: am I going to sell now, or am I going to wait till it come back? And you may not have time for all of that to happen. You may be closer to retirement, and you just don't have the 5, 10, 15 years for that stock to actually make it come back to where it rebalances your portfolio. So that's why it may be a good idea. And it's always good to look at it to make sure that your portfolio is what you chose it to be. And that's a big one. Most people, they what I just described, it happens constantly. It happens a lot, much more than people think. Much more than people think. And that's why I always advise you to be actively involved in your investments. No, you don't have to be a stock trader every day watching it, but quarterly, semi-annually, or at least annually, making sure that you are where you made a decision to be. And that's why sometimes you want to, maybe it may be time to pull out of, not own so much of that type of a stock in your fund. So those were some of the pros and cons of you know reinvesting, whether you choose to reinvest or whether you choose to take the dividends. And also taking dividends, you have to understand what type of an account your funds are in. If it's an IRA, if it's a Roth, if it's a traditional, because of the tax ramifications. You have to take all of that into an account before you start taking dividends. Because I see some people, they're younger, and I'm like, you're healthy, you're in these working years. Why are you like spending so much of your dividends to like travel and things like that when you could just be producing other forms of income? Because that may come back to bite you. Because I've seen, for instance, someone, I had a conversation with them and they were like, if I would have left this alone, um, they'd been working, they'd hit their 40th year. They said, I pulled out a lot of money and it cost me about 500,000 extra dollars. Yes, I did have some fun and all that, but it really wasn't worth $500,000. Now that I'm in retirement, that was the extra $500,000 that could be helping me in retirement. And it was because they were pulling dividends. And some people, they were doing it on purpose. Some people just did not tell the fund or the company to reinvest it, and so they were just taking the dividends and wasn't thinking about it, just taking a check, and no one told them, hey, just leave it reinvested and you could have a whole lot more in retirement. So that's why you want to make sure you're working with a pro, or at least if you have the time and the excess time, the excess education and money to be able to to make these type of decisions on your own, do it. But make a prudent decision on whether or not you should take dividends. And I hope that the information that I gave you actually is helpful, at least put you in the right direction to know what you should do in these particular situations. Because a lot of people, they don't even know, they wouldn't know if their company was actually paying a dividend because they just haven't checked it. Maybe time to check. If you don't know what to do, give us a call here, contact us here. We can definitely help you with that. Our contact information is on the screen there. Give us a call and we can help you make the decisions for you. This is also mid-year, maybe time for that mid-year checkup, or maybe you're not on target with your goals and it may be time to sit down with someone and actually map out a strategy to at least finish the year strong and go into 2026 on a much better financial footing, at least on target with your finances. Contact us. We'll make sure, set an appointment, talk for a few minutes, and decide what we're going to do from there. So thank you for tuning in. Thank you for watching. Like I said, if you are watching by Facebook or YouTube, share it, like it, tell other people about it. Don't keep it a secret. Let other people know, because the information, there's enough for everyone out here, so it doesn't have to be secret. I'm flattered that you would want to keep me to yourself, but there's enough for the show to go around. There's enough information to go around that other people, you can help them get on the path to financial health and wellness. So that being said, I will talk to you next time, same channel. Have a good day.